Every time I left my room and came back, my things had been moved, not stolen, not messed up, arranged, my pens lined up in a row, my books stacked by size, my little trinkets set out in a neat circle on the desk. Someone was coming into my room while I was gone and tidying it into patterns, and I lived alone, and my door was always locked. Welcome back. It's just you and me in the dark tonight. 3 true stories about that particular creeping unease. The sense that someone has been in your room, that your own private space, the one place that's supposed to be only yours, has a visitor you've never met. Let's begin. I rented a room in a house, and I kept to myself, and I kept my door locked, not because I didn't trust my housemates, but out of habit. My room was my sanctuary, small but mine, and I liked things a certain way, which is why I noticed immediately when things started being a different way. The first time, it was my pens. I keep a messy desk, pens scattered, papers everywhere, an organized chaos, I understand. And I came home from work one day, and my pens were lined up in a neat, evenly spaced row along the top of my desk, ordered by length. I stood in my doorway and stared at them because I had not done that, and no one else had a key, and my door had been locked. But it's pens. You tell yourself you did it absent-mindedly, that you don't remember, that it's nothing. Then it kept happening. Every time I left the room for more than an hour or so, I'd come back to find something arranged. My books stacked in a perfect pyramid by size, my spare change sorted into little towers by denomination. The clothes in my hamper refolded in the hamper, the dirty clothes. And most unsettling of all, my collection of little knickknacks and souvenirs, which I keep on a shelf, would be taken down and set out on my desk in patterns, a spiral, a circle. Once a perfect 5-pointed star, each object placed just so. Someone was coming into my locked room while I was out, and arranging my belongings into careful, deliberate patterns. And then, I assumed, leaving every day and never taking a single thing. I did everything. New lock, a camera, a hair taped across the door, and the camera would show me leaving in the morning and the door staying shut all day, no one entering. And yet, when I got home, the patterns would be there, made while a camera watched a door that never opened. The hair across the door would be unbroken, the lock unpicked, and inside, my whole life would be arranged into shapes on my desk by hands that apparently didn't need to open a door to reach my room. The patterns got more complex over the weeks, more intricate. And I started to feel that they were building towards something, that whoever, whatever, was arranging my things was practicing, refining, working up to a final design. I did some reading late at night, the way you do when you can't say any of this out loud to anyone in your life. And I found others describing the same thing. The tidying, the patterns, the arranged objects in a locked room. And what unsettled me most was that none of them agreed on what it wanted. Some thought it was a warning. Some thought it was a courtship, a strange gift, an offering. One person wrote that they'd come to believe it wasn't arranging their things at all. It was arranging a space, making a room the way it liked a room. Setting things in the order that felt right to it, the way you'd tidy a house you'd just moved into. And that idea got into me and wouldn't leave, because it meant the patterns were never messages for me. They were housekeeping. Something had decided my room was its room now. And every day while I was gone, it set my things the way it wanted them. And every evening I came home and disturbed its careful order by living in it. I wasn't the resident anymore. I was the mess, and the little funeral on my desk at the end. I've always been afraid I understood exactly what it meant, that it had grown tired of the mess, that it had decided how to finally have the room to itself. And one day I came home, and the arrangement on my desk wasn't an abstract pattern anymore. It was a little scene. My knickknacks had been arranged into a tiny tableau, a small figure made from a keychain lying down, and around it other objects placed like mourners, like a funeral. A tiny figure lying down, surrounded by little watchers on my desk, and propped against the wall behind it, turned to face the scene, was the framed photograph from my nightstand. The one of me. I moved out that week, and I never learned who arranged my room or how they got in or what the little funeral was supposed to mean. But I've never since been able to leave my room messy. I line my pens up myself now, order my own books, set my own things in neat, deliberate rows. I tell myself it's a habit I picked up. But the truth is, I do it so that if anything ever moves them again, I'll know right away. And so that whatever it was, if it ever finds me again, will see that I've learned to keep things the way it likes them. Just in case that's enough. Just in case that keeps me off the desk. Keeping a desk tidy was one way to bargain. The next woman found something already curled up in her own closet. A warm impression on the floor, pressed into the shape of someone who'd been hiding there. She lived alone, and one evening she went to her bedroom closet to get something, and when she opened the door and looked down, she noticed the pile of spare blankets and pillows she kept on the closet floor was disturbed, flattened, and in the center of it there was an indentation, a body-shaped hollow pressed into the pile, the exact shape of a person curled up on their side. And when she put her hand down to it to smooth it back, it was warm, body warm, as if someone had just been lying there, curled up in the dark of her closet, and had gotten out moments before she opened the door. She searched the apartment, terrified, and found no one. Doors locked, windows shut, no one there. She told herself she'd imagined the warmth, that the shape was just how the blankets had settled. But it happened again and again. Every so often she'd open the closet to find that nest of blankets flattened, the body-shaped hollow pressed into it, warm to the touch. Someone was spending time curled up in her closet, on the floor, in the dark, among her blankets, and getting out somehow before she ever caught them, leaving only the warm shape of themselves behind. She started to keep the closet closed and then locked, wedging a chair against it, and the impression kept appearing anyway on the morning she opened it, warm, freshly made, the shape of someone who had spent the night curled on the floor of a locked closet a few feet from her bed. And she began to understand the geometry of it, which was the worst part. The closet was right beside her bed. Whoever curled up in there each night in the warm dark was lying just on the other side of that thin closet wall from where she slept, close enough to hear her breathe, close enough that when she lay in bed at night, her head and the head of the thing in the closet were only a couple of feet apart, separated by a door and a wall, both of them lying down in the dark, both of them she realized with horror, probably listening to each other. She told me the detail she's never been able to put down, the one that turned her fear into something closer to grief. Because after a while, she stopped being only afraid of the thing in the closet and started to feel the shape of what it was actually doing there. It wasn't hiding to ambush her, it wasn't waiting to hurt her, it was sleeping. It curled up in the warm dark among her blankets on the floor of her closet a few feet from her bed, and it slept there every night the way a person sleeps in a home, the way a child sleeps down the hall from a parent. It had chosen the one spot in the whole apartment that was closest to her, closest to another breathing thing, and made its little nest there and slept beside her through the wall night after night. Taking comfort, she thought, in her nearness the way she might have taken comfort in a pet's. And that was somehow worse than a monster, because you can flee a monster. But something that only wants to sleep near you, that has decided you are its warmth in the dark, has no reason to ever stop following you. It isn't hunting you, it's keeping you. And she's never known which of those is the harder thing to escape. She moved, and she told me she got rid of every blanket and pillow that had been in that closet. She couldn't stand to sleep under them, not after knowing that something had been curling up in them night after night, making itself comfortable and warm a few feet from her face. In the dark of a locked closet, in the one room that was supposed to be hers alone. That closet kept its secret warm. The last story tonight is about a private diary, one that someone else, uninvited, had started writing in. She'd kept a diary since she was a teenager, a real one, a physical book that she wrote in most nights and kept hidden, locked, private. It was the one place she put her truest thoughts, the things she'd never say out loud. And one night she opened it to write and found that below her last entry there was new writing, in handwriting that wasn't hers. Someone had written in her diary in the space beneath where she'd left off, and what they'd written was a response to her. It read, "I read what you wrote about being lonely. You're not. I'm always here." She was terrified, and she was certain a housemate had found her diary and was messing with her, some cruel prank. But the diary had been locked and hidden, and no one knew where, and the handwriting was like nothing she'd seen. She tore out the page, hid the diary somewhere new, told no one, and the next time she opened it, there was more. Beneath her latest entry, again the other handwriting had answered. It had read what she wrote, her private, hidden, locked-away thoughts, and it responded to them, personally, intimately, every time, comforting her sometimes, agreeing with her, once gently correcting her about a memory, insisting it had happened differently, insisting it had been there. It became a correspondence. She couldn't stop. She'd write, and it would answer. And its answers grew warmer and more familiar and more possessive. "I liked what you wrote today. Don't tell them about me. This is just ours. I've been reading you for longer than you know." She stopped writing in the diary entirely, hoping to end it. And the entries kept appearing anyway. The other handwriting, filling the pages, now writing about her without her, describing her day back to her, describing what she'd worn, what she'd thought, as if it no longer needed her to write first, as if it had simply taken over the book, and taken over the telling of her own life. She tried, before she burned it, to figure out how far back it went, to find the first entry that wasn't hers. And she couldn't, because as she flipped back through years of the diary, she started to notice the other handwriting further and further back, woven in among her own, in entries she'd thought she'd written alone. A line here, a word there. Sometimes a whole passage she had no memory of, in a hand almost but not quite like hers, describing feelings she'd had but never written down. It had been in the book far longer than the recent entries. It had been reading her and quietly answering her, and sometimes writing as her for years. And she'd never noticed, because it had learned to write so much like her that its hand and hers had slowly, over time, become nearly the same. That was the thing that made her burn it, not the threats. The realization that she could no longer tell, paging back through her own diary, which of her most private memories she'd actually written, and which had been written for her gently by the thing in the book, until she'd read them enough times to believe they were hers. It hadn't just wanted to know her, it had been quietly becoming her, one entry at a time, and she had no way left to know how much of herself was already its handwriting. The last entry, the one that made her burn the diary in her kitchen sink, wasn't about her day. It was addressed to her directly, and it said, "You stopped writing to me. That's all right. I don't need the book anymore. I know you well enough now. From here on, I'll just write you myself." She burned it that night, watched it curl to ash, and she told me she doesn't keep a diary anymore, doesn't write anything down, doesn't record her private thoughts in any form at all, because the last thing that book taught her was that whatever had been reading her hadn't needed the diary to know her. The diary had just been where it introduced itself, and it had told her in her own private book in someone else's hand that it didn't need the introduction anymore, that it could write her now from the inside. That's all for tonight. If this one's got you glancing around your own room, then you know what to do. Subscribe and hit that bell, because there's a new true horror story here every single night, and you won't want to miss one. Give it a like so it finds the next person in the dark, and share it with someone who keeps a locked door. I'll be right here tomorrow night when the lights go down. Sleep well if you can.
Like, share, and subscribe for daily horror stories every single day.